With respect to Go First, we are now given to understand Go First could be resuming operation as early as June. Remember, it's 16th of June already, so you could expect Go First, and this is according to what is coming out in the media at this point in time, that Go First could come back to skies by end of June. We're also given to understand that there is a new resolution professional at the helm of affairs. What exactly happened, Karthik? Why was the change made?
So, Shweta, as I read it, it's primarily on the plea of the Committee of Creditors (COC), and these are creditors of Go First that Go First owes substantial amounts of money to, and in the in wake of their plea to NCLT, NCLT went ahead and changed the interim resolution professional to Mr. Shailendra Ajmera. Remember, Abhilash Lal was the IRP up until now, and he's been replaced by Shailendra Ajmera. And the mandate that the new IRP has is fairly well chalked out, and that is where the lessors really figure in. So I think the COC and the lessors both were not very excited with the way things were panning out over the last 1 month with Abhilash Lal, and decided to move NCLT for a change in IRP, and that change has come about. I've read in the papers as well that that Abhilash Lal had no issue really with that change initiated to swap him with Mr. Ajmera. But it's on the plea of the COC and the lessors. But again, there are reports now suggesting that Go First is readying for the skies once again and is willing to maybe fly with about 157 out of 167 aircraft, serviceable aircraft that it has. That number seemed a little too high for me to believe, but I'd not really like to stick my neck out and comment on that. But yeah, so some sections of the media are reporting that Go First is ready to take to the skies, whereas others are also suggesting that the future continues to look bleak until the creditors and the lessors and their worries are taken care of. And of course, unless the aircraft that were grounded on account of faulty engines and unserviceable parts are resolved, because without that, it doesn't really make sense to take on operations once again. Because if it made sense, you would not have grounded your fleet and filed for voluntary insolvency anyway.
Right. Right, absolutely. And given that Go First commanded a share of about 6.5% in the aviation space, has currently about 500 pilots, which means that they can fly up to 30 planes on a daily basis, means that Go First is prepared if at all it is now nudged and asked to go back to skies. Interesting story with respect to Go First. With Go First now out of business for a while, it appears that Indigo is enjoying and having its share of the pie and their share of the pie as well, with a market of currently at about 61%. So Indigo there, a low-cost domestic airline, enjoying the fact that it is now one of the most dominant players in the aviation space. The Go First going under, at least temporarily, has come to Indigo's benefit at this point in time.
Yes, and taking on from what Karthik said, maybe the Tata Sons and Indigo may not want it back, but the consumers definitely want it back to ease prices of airfares, like we discussed a few days back. But yeah, so it's I hope they are back because that will ease prices. But like you said, it is a good times for Indigo and probably even Vistara and AirAsia.
Absolutely, good time for all the existing domestic players. But interestingly, when Go First went under, and since we've been discussing this story of aviation space where more and more carriers are needed, existing carriers of course dwindling in absence of enough revenues that they're able to generate, problems with SpiceJet, and we extensively talked about how lessors of SpiceJet are moving NCLT on a daily basis because they don't want to see themselves in a similar situation as the lessors of Go First, who, by the way, have not been paid back what they were promised, neither do they have their aircrafts back. So SpiceJet is another airline which is in problem at this point in time. But moving back to Go First, from the moment it ceased operations, which was to many people, as many people said, was abrupt, even to DGCA that issued notices to Go First, asking it to reply within a stipulated timeline as to what suddenly happened, and what about the people who had booked those flights back in the month of May. All of that could be put behind now if Go First resumes operation in June. And June, which we're in the middle of the month, so we're essentially looking at next 15 days for Go First to go back to skies.
Yeah, they had a whole lot of problems. The 200 crores that they were looking for had to pay salaries also of 2 months. So they had to basically clear that, and then the pressure from the lessors, of course, as you mentioned. So I hope they have gotten their credits, they have gotten their monies, and I hope it's back to business as usual.
Okay.
At least for the sake of the consumers, like I'll repeat myself.
Right. Absolutely. And Karthik is back with us. Karthik, the Pratt & Whitney engines, due to which Go First had to first cease operations in the first place, that issue continues to exist. Has there been some sort of resolution on that front? Because most of the aircrafts that had problems, by the way of Pratt & Whitney not repairing those engines, not coming up and doing what it was expected to do. But has that problem gone away? Is that why we are seeing Go First coming back? Are those aircrafts now serviceable?
I don't think so. I don't think so, Shweta, because it's in NCNT. It's already filing for bankruptcy, and there's a moratorium on any kinds of payment and any kind of return of aircraft or engines or exchange of aircraft or engines one way or another. So in the absence of that, I doubt there has been any new part, new engine, new spares coming into the Go First hangars. And at the same time, I doubt any aircrafts have been taken away from the stable to get repaired somewhere else and brought back. Right. So to my understanding, no, there hasn't been any change in stance when it comes to the Pratt & Whitney engines. But I think the interesting story which is playing out, and this is of particular interest to Amit, who's sitting with you in the studio, is this beautiful duopoly playing out between Tata Group and Indigo. Indigo with a 61% upwards market share, and the Tata Group combined, which includes Air Asia, Air India, and Vistara, commanding about 27% of market share. So overall, when you look at this whole flying basket in India, the share of skies, if I may put it, is in excess of about 85-86% between two players. And that's a pure definition of a monopoly. So before I got disconnected, you were asking me if everybody would be happy about Go First coming back. I doubt Rajiv Bhatia or Ratan Tata would be very happy if the new IRP were to settle the issues and get Go First back in the skies soon.
Okay, interesting. And going back to your point of Go First saying that it will be able to make 157 domestic flights operational, and the fact that there has not been any resolution with Pratt & Whitney, that number looks a little too much.
That's what I started by saying. 157 or about, nearabouts of 160 with 50% of its serviceable fleet is something it could have done anyway. It's something that it did not need to ground itself for. So this cease of operations for a month and a half, by the time it takes to skies, God knows, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, could be any time frame. How does the financial situation of the airline improve without it being in operations for a period of time? And therefore, with the existing faulty engines, with a reduced 50% fleet size, with the same sectors that you fly in, how do you intend to make money, and how do you intend to not file for another case of voluntary insolvency a few weeks later? Because your financial situation is not going to improve as long as your fleet is not fully serviceable and airworthy. And at the same time, your engine problems that led to the financial losses are not resolved.
Okay, so the way ahead is filled with roadblocks for Go First, as we can see at this point in time. But what's also interesting is that they're saying they're going to come back by the end of June. It's already 16th of June, mid of June here. The timeline does not look very feasible to me, Karthik. You're saying 4 to 6 weeks is what you said, but they're saying end of June.
Right. No, I said 4 to 6 weeks from the time the trouble started. We are in the sixth
Right.
week already, and
Okay.
could take God knows how much longer. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, operations are definitely suspended till Monday, 19th of June.
Right.
And what happens in subsequent NCLT hearings, how the new IRP wants to manage the issue of creditors and lessors and really help the airline come back into operations is something we'll actually have to really wait and watch unfold, because it's difficult for me right now to imagine a situation that with the same challenges that Go First faced on the 2nd of May while filing for voluntary insolvency, those challenges continue to be on their heads, on their books. So what's the time hurry to resume operations with the same challenges? I think it's important for those challenges to be resolved first, one way or another. And if that leads to survival of the airline, and if that leads to flying operations resuming, of course, more than welcome. Higher the competition, better it is for the country, for the consumers, and for other airlines who want to come and take part in the Indian aviation story. But unless those issues are resolved, it doesn't make any sense for this urgency to go back up in the air.
Mm-hmm.